Catalan pro-independence party Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya celebrates after leading the pro-cession bloc to boost their parliamentary majority in a regional election. The first coronavirus vaccines arrived in Zimbabwe in an Air Zimbabwe jet carrying 200,000 doses from China. In Myanmar, protesters continue to gather across the country following a night in which authorities cut the country's internet access and increased security in major cities. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is from the south. Catalan pro-independence party Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya celebrates after leading the pro-accession bloc to boost their parliamentary majority in a regional election. The three parties who promote independence for Madrid are set to get 74 seats in the 135-seat assembly, with the Esquerra Republicana getting 33 seats, the Juntas per Catalunya getting 32, and the Candidatura de Unitat Popular 9 seats.
Catalunya Més avui ha fet història. Per primera vegada...
Catalonia has made history today. For the first time, independence exceeds 50% of the vote, and this means that this country is beginning a new stage. We have an immense power to achieve amnesty and self-determination, to achieve the freedom of political prisoners and the return of exiles. We have immense power to get the referendum, to get the Catalan Republic.
I would like to send a message to European authorities. The results are clear. We, the pro-independence parties, have a majority. We have reached more than 50% of the popular vote. The Catalan people have spoken. The time has come to negotiate a referendum of self-determination. Please get involved.
In Egypt, officials said on Monday that an apartment building partly collapsed in the nation's capital, killing at least 3 people. Officials added that rescue workers in Cairo were looking for any survivors trapped under rubble of the 3-story building after the overnight partial collapse in the Round El Farag neighborhood. They retrieved an injured child who was taken into a nearby hospital for treatment. The 3 dead are from one family. Police forces cordoned off the area. It was not immediately clear what caused the building to partly collapse. On Monday, Iran's foreign ministry criticized U.S. President Joe Biden for keeping sanctions against Iran that were imposed by former President Donald Trump.
The United States has not changed from the Trump era regarding the imposition of sanctions, and this could be a matter of shame for those who founded their election campaign on distancing themselves from the Trump administration's bullying policies. Next week, and on a date that the Iranian Atomic Energy Agency will determine after technical considerations, the government is obligated by the parliament to stop voluntary implementation of the additional protocol if the other parties have not fulfilled their commitments until that day. Cooperation between Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency will continue. The Islamic Republic of Iran will definitely send a letter to the agency and inform them about the details, just like before. Everyone should note that all these actions by Iran are reversible. They are easily reversible, on the condition that other parties implement their commitments.
The Syrian Army's air defense unit repelled early Monday morning an Israeli airstrike in the suburbs of Damascus. According to a military source, the attack was carried out at exactly 1:18 a.m. with rocket volleys from the occupied Syrian Golan and Al Jalil, targeting some targets in the vicinity of the city. The source added that the country's air defense managed to shoot down most of the Israeli missiles. Local news agency Sana confirmed that sounds of explosions were heard in the sky over the western countryside of the capital, and that the Syrian air defenses were facing the Israeli aggression. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has been acquitted in his second impeachment trial. The Senate rejected the charge that he incited the January 6th attack on Capitol Hill with 57 votes in favor and 43 against. 7 Republicans voted with all 50 Democrats to convict him. This is the most bipartisan support for conviction in any of the 4 impeachments in U.S. history. However, the final tally fell short of the 2/3 majority needed to convict and disqualify Trump from holding future office.
So there can be no doubt that at the moment we most needed a president to preserve, protect, and defend us, President Trump instead willfully betrayed us. He violated his oath. He left all of us and officers like Eugene Goodman to our own devices against an attack he had incited and he alone could stop. That is why he must be convicted.
For those who say we need to get past this, we need to come together, we need to unify. If we don't set this right and call it what it was, the highest of constitutional crimes by the President of the United States, the past will not be past. The past will become our future.
And speaking shortly after the acquittal, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi accused some Republican senators of being cowards who put their personal interests above those of the country.
But what we saw in that Senate today was a cowardly group of Republicans who apparently have no options because they were afraid to defend their job, respect the institution in which they served. What is so important about any one of us? What is so important about the political survival of any one of us that is more important than our Constitution that we take an oath to protect and defend?
Dozens of people have been killed in overnight clashes between Yemen government soldiers and Houthi fighters in the Marib region. 2 government and military officials said at least 16 pro-government forces were killed and 21 wounded in the past 24 hours, adding that dozens were killed among Houthi ranks. Earlier this month, the Houthis launched a new offensive to capture the region from the government. Yemen has been embroiled in a bloody power struggle since 2014 between its government, supported by Saudi Arabia, and Houthi rebels who control the capital Sana'a and most of the north. Let's take a very short break now. Join us again after this. And also, don't forget to follow me on my Twitter account at @teleSUR for more news. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. On Monday, the first coronavirus vaccines arrived in Zimbabwe as an Air Zimbabwe jet carrying 200,000 doses from China. It is one of China's first shipments of vaccines to Africa after deliveries to Egypt and Equatorial Guinea. The first Sinopharm vaccines are a donation from China to the southern African country. President Emerson Mnangagwa's government has purchased an additional 600,000 doses of the Sinopharm vaccine that are expected to arrive early next month. According to a government rollout plan, Zimbabwe's health professionals and immigrant agents working at border posts will get first priority for the vaccine. Zimbabwean Vice President Constantino Chiwenga was at the Harare airport for the arrival of the vaccines.
That Zimbabwe is one of the first countries to receive the vaccine donation from China. That's because China and Zimbabwe enjoy the time of the friendship. But Zimbabwe is our brother. So the assistance of vaccine and the supply of vaccine to Zimbabwe is not a problem.
It has not been lost on us that in time of need, China's response has been swift, resulting in this donation being the first vaccine to reach our country. This is yet another demonstration of the long-standing bonds of friendship and solidarity between our two countries.
The vaccination campaign in Lebanon resumed on Monday at 15 medical centers with healthcare workers and staff at the Rafik Hariri University Hospital receiving their first doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. Lebanon administered its first jabs of the vaccine on Sunday with an intensive care unit physician and a 93-year-old becoming the first two people to receive Pfizer-BioNTech doses. The country launched its inoculation campaign a day after receiving the first batch of the 28,500 doses from Brussels, where Pfizer has a manufacturing facility. More doses are scheduled to arrive in the coming weeks, in addition to vaccines from other companies. Lebanon registers so far over 340,000 COVID-19 cases and just under 4,000 deaths.
In my opinion, this vaccine might change the equation, and God willing, it will give immunity, especially to the people who might be exposed, as well as the elderly and the healthcare workers. God willing, if we vaccinate lots of people, the situation will become better. Today, the campaign began in 15 centers, and God willing, that will increase to 50 centers across Lebanon, to confirm that this vaccine will reach everyone.
The first batch of 100,000 Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccines has arrived in Venezuela. The government of President Nicolás Maduro has an agreement of 10 million doses with Russia.
We are proud, Ambassador, of the Russia-Venezuela cooperation in which Russia has extended the hand of friendship and solidarity to our people, a country under attack by imperial powers.
Mexico is easing COVID-19 restrictions in about half of the country, including the capital, amid a drop in infections and hospitalizations in many places. Mexico City announced that starting next week, gyms, indoor swimming pools, and churches will be allowed to reopen, and restaurants will be able to operate outdoors until 10 p.m. Shopping malls in the capital partially reopened during the past week. The government is trying to speed up the vaccination program with the authorization of 2 new vaccines this week. Fewer than 86,000 people have been fully vaccinated in a country with 126 million inhabitants. A plane carrying 870,000 AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine doses has landed at Mexico City, the first batch produced in India to arrive in the country.
What we are witnessing today is the arrival of the first AstraZeneca vaccines developed with Oxford that were produced in India for Mexico. The shipment is very important because it will let us accelerate our vaccination drive as was ordered by the President.
Authorities in Guinea and international health partners have pledged immediate action to stop the spread of the Ebola virus that was identified in Nsereko region this weekend. The West African nation on Sunday confirmed the first Ebola case since the world's deadliest Ebola epidemic that ended 5 years ago. According to the Ministry of Health, 4 more people are confirmed with Ebola. The government has declared an Ebola epidemic and started contact tracing and isolating suspected cases. It has also sent an emergency team to support local teams in Gakue and has accelerated the procurement of Ebola vaccines from the World Health Organization. Guinea's announcement comes 1 week after Eastern Congo confirmed it had also cases.
Today we have 2 cases who are hospitalized in Serekore. 1 case that was referred to Conakry and 2 cases of people who died and whose body are in the morgue of Serekore waiting to be buried.
The laboratory in Conakry has confirmed the presence of the Ebola virus, so this situation puts the country in a situation of an Ebola epidemic.
South Africa prepares to reopen its land border after an intense battle with the second wave of the coronavirus. Long queues of migrants from all over the continent were turned back as the country sought to put the high infections and death rates under control. The country's Mpumalanga province is expecting the return of thousands, but there are those already in the country struggling to live. Our correspondent, Matuba Malachi, brings us the details.
The age of 60 makes many poor South Africans eligible for a government social grant of just over $100 a month. Born to migrant parents 60 years ago, Josephine Nkosi is undocumented and can't access those funds. She says she's 65 but has no access to social grants. She was born here but moved to Eswatini as a child. But on her return, she was never able to get South Africa to give her an identity document because she got all her immunization as a child in the neighboring kingdom. But she says access to the nearby public health facility isn't a problem. Her children, however, are all South African citizens, but she battles to make ends meet. She survives with the help of community leaders like Nhlonipho Dlamini.
We also go and seek donations for food parcels, and then we distribute them the food parcels. Should there be other issues, maybe at work or something, we intervene. Like others, they send staff to schools for living. So we also assist. Sometimes the school principal doesn't want them, then we go and intervene for them to be allowed to get a living.
Another community leader, Nomsa Matobela, says the situation in neighboring kingdom of Eswatini is desperate.
Some of the people from Swaziland, they can't afford to pay school fees there because there's no free education. So in South Africa, because there's free education, some of the people, they bring their children this side because they know that everything is free. They get books free. Like I said, education is free. So that's why they like their children to come to South Africa.
The Mananga border post is one of the gateways into Eswatini Kingdom. But the subjects of King Swati III are flocking into South Africa by their numbers because this is where they get their economic freedom and opportunities to make a living. From the Mananga border post in South Africa, I'm Matiba Masaji.
We're taking one last short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. Demonstrators in Myanmar on Monday sat in protest behind a police barricade on a road leading to the headquarters of the police party led by deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Protesters continued to gather across the country following a night in which authorities cut the country's internet access and increased the security presence in major cities, seeking to curtail demonstrations against this month's military takeover. Despite not being able to reach the National League for Democracy party building in Yangon, demonstrators were not deterred and continued chanting slogans and waving banners behind the blockade, demanding the release of Suu Kyi and the return of the government they say they elected. In Naypyidaw, Myanmar's capital, protesters gathered outside a police station demanding the release of a group of high school students who were detained while joining in protest activities. A line of riot police backed by water cannons drew up nearby. Hours later, the protesters were released from prisons. A crowd of hundreds of protesters waited for them outside the prison's wages.
After the girls from our group left, the police surrounded us and tried to arrest us. We asked them to let us go, but they arrested 2-3 protesters, and all of us decided to go with them. After the girls from our group left, the police surrounded us and tried to arrest us. We asked them to let us go, but they arrested 2-3 protesters, and all of us decided to go with them.
Torrential rains triggered a landslide in Indonesia's main island of Java, killing at least 2 people and leaving 16 others missing. Hundreds of rescuers, including soldiers, police, and volunteers, took part in the search for the missing of the village of Selopuro in East Java's Njangguk district to search for possible victims. The mud that rolled from the surrounding hills late on Sunday struck at least 80 houses, leaving 21 people buried under tons of mud. 14 other people were injured. Overnight rains also caused more rivers to burst their banks in order to districts of the province on Monday, sending nearly 1 meter of muddy waters into more residential areas, forcing hundreds of people to flee from their submerged homes. A Japanese government spokesperson said on Monday that 12 people are seriously injured and 141 people suffered minor injuries after a strong earthquake set off a landslide on a highway. The earthquake damaged buildings, parts of bullet train lines, and caused a power blackout for thousands of people in northeastern Japan. The 7.3 magnitude tremor shook the quake-prone areas as Fukushima and Miyagi prefectures that 10 years ago had been hit by a powerful earthquake that triggered a tsunami and a meltdown at a nuclear power plant. Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Katsunobu Kato warned residents in areas that experience strong quakes to be careful as the heavy rainfall in the Tohoku region could cause landslide disasters.
Regarding information about damages, human damage, 12 people are seriously injured, 141 people with minor injuries. This is as of 5:30 this morning. Regarding buildings, there are damages to roof tiles and window glasses, and 162 houses report damage. This is also as of 5:30 this morning. In the Tohoku region, heavy rainfall may occur from this evening to tomorrow, resulting in heavy rainfall. Due to this earthquake, there is a possibility that the ground has loosened where the shaking was severe. If you live in such an area, please be careful about landslide disasters.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, I am Stefania Bravo. See you next time.